I'm going to teach you what I wish I knew when I started sublimating, how to take care of my converted printer so that I got the best possible quality prints out of it and the longest life out of it. So I'm going to go over 5 things with you today. So let's go ahead and pop into it. And by the way, if you're new here, you're crafting with Kim Byers. Let's go. Okay, so for a piece of advice, number 1, and this is something that I get all the time. People always want to know, can I convert an old EcoTank printer into a sublimation printer? So one that I've had, been using for regular printed copies all this time. Unfortunately, the answer is no. And the reason is because the ink, the regular ink, the Epson ink that goes into the printer not only goes into the tank, but it goes into the ink pads. And so those ink pads have sucked up all of that ink, and so you're never going to be able to clean them. I mean, they're never going to be ink free, even if you run sublimation printer or sublimation ink through that printer. And so unfortunately, long story short is no, you have to buy a new printer. Good news is that they're often on sale, and I actually myself just purchased the one on my craft table right now, and we can pop over and let me show you that top down. Okay, so here we are on my craft table, and so this is my brand new Epson EcoTank printer that I just got. So Epson EcoTank, this is an ET2800, and so I haven't even taken all of the wrapping and stuff off of it yet, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this today with ink. And so this is the ink, just in case you haven't purchased one of these yet. This is what comes in the box. You get the printer, and you get an instruction sheet, and you also get a cord, get a charging cord, and then it comes with this. This is what makes these printers special, because instead of buying the little cartridges that you used to buy, you get these. So they are ink that you would fill into this tank yourself. And so you have these little things here, you pop those open, you would put this ink into that. Well, what we are going to do though is we are going to use sublimation ink. Okay, and so tip number 2, and this is important, you need to choose a good quality ink, sublimation ink, the first time, and then stick with it. Okay, so much like when you have a new printer versus an old printer, there would be ink inside of that old printer. It would be the same if you changed brands of your ink halfway through. The old ink isn't gone, right? It's still in the ink pads and all that kind of thing. Even if the tank is empty, it's still in the ink pads, it's still in the printer. So choose a good quality ink the first time, and then stick with it for the life of your printer. Okay, so let's stop right there. I want to share with you that today's video is sponsored by Hiipoo Ink. And so I just want to be clear with you guys on this. Hiipoo is a great product. And how do I know that? I know it because I've been using it for over 2 years. So almost every video, every project on this channel was made with Hiipoo Ink. I've been happy with the vibrancy, the adhesion. I've been happy with how it works with my printer. I have not had any problems whatsoever. I've made t-shirts and totes and hats and Christmas ornaments and garden flags and metal tags for like puppy dogs and things. I have used Hiipoo Ink for all of those things. It has worked very well on all of them. Tip number 3. You want to choose photo quality prints every single time. So as you're going through that print process, it's going to pop up and it's going to ask you, what kind of print you want and that kind of thing. And I did this when I first had my sublimation printer. I would just go, click, 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 I'm going to print. And I didn't think about the fact that these printers are made for office work, right? And most of the time that is a black and white document or a document with very little color. And it's not that the quality doesn't matter, because it does, but it's not like a photo quality. But if you go into the settings when you're printing, it's going to ask you if you want photo quality. So what I'm telling you in tip number 3 is always choose photo quality when you send anything to print, and that will tell the printer that you want all of the ink. You don't want it to hold anything back. And tip number 4, just make sure that you are using good quality sublimation paper. Okay, so good in, good out. If you don't use good quality paper, you're not going to get a good quality print. And just remember that when you print on sublimation paper, it comes out and it looks muted. The heat of sublimation is what brings out that pop of color. Okay, and so tip number 5, and this is a doozy. Okay, so tip number 5, critically important to you not being stressed out and enjoying your sublimation printer. Clean your sublimation printer. And the way that you do that are through nozzle checks on your printer. I mean, it's just a couple of buttons on the front, and you can do head cleaners and all that kind of thing, because sublimation printing requires that ink to move. And if that ink keeps flowing and moving, it doesn't get, you know, stale, and it doesn't sit on those heads, and it doesn't kind of clog it up. Think about like Elmer's glue or something like that, where it gets like a film over it, and so then it doesn't want to print and it streaks. So you don't want that to happen to your printer. And so this happened to me in the first, you know, when I owned the first one. And so I don't want this to happen to you. And the best way for it not to happen is for you to do small like nozzle checks on your printer every few days. It takes seconds. You literally will use the keyboard on your printer, and if you click through the maintenance, it's going to offer you a nozzle check, and you're going to do that, and it's going to print out a sheet, very little ink being used, but it will keep that ink flowing in your printer. And then if you do need something more in depth, so maybe your print is coming out and it's got streaks on it, or a color, you know, is not quite what it should be, or has spots, you're going to be able to do multiple layers of cleaning in that same maintenance window on the actual printer. And it's super simple. What I will tell you is, if you have to get deep into like the third or fourth level of cleaning, because maybe you didn't do these test prints that I'm telling you to do, you could have to wait up to 24 hours. So like you would do the nozzle head cleaning or the head cleaning, and then you would have to wait 24 hours. And if you have something you're trying to create in a specific time frame, that can get really frustrating, right? So don't do what I did the first time. Do what I'm telling you now, and do small test prints on your printer every few days, just to keep that ink flowing and to keep it getting that Elmer's glue effect. Bonus, something that you need to know. If you are going to convert an Epson EcoTank to a sublimation printer, be warned that its lifespan is reduced. You are likely only going to get 2 years out of this. How do I know? Because mine died at the 2-year mark. Now guys, that's not a bad thing. You're gonna, I mean, if you're using this, you know, you're not paying a significant amount of money for it. Just go into it knowing that the ink pads are eventually going to go bad on your printer. But you're going to be able to get, you know, a couple of really great years of using this printer. So there's a good and a bad, but I wanted to be upfront with you and honest that mine started messing up the cleaning process. None of it worked on it. And when I contacted Epson and like went through the whole thing, which I don't love the whole customer service, you know, not Epson, but just like the whole customer service thing is annoying, but I did it because I really wanted to know what was wrong with my printer and if I could fix it. And it was the ink pads. They went bad. So just be warned that it's a 2-year investment. Get the most out of it that you can absolutely get out of it for 2 years, and then know that it's likely gonna die. I really hope this was helpful for you. If you are thinking about converting an Epson EcoTank, make sure you watch this next video. If you already have, guys, hop over and check out how to make iPhone cases with your Epson and sublimation ink. See you next time.